I'd like to call to order the February 23rd, 2021 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm John Thompson, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The Commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the Commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the Commissioners. The Commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and we will introduce Commissioners to my left.
Good morning. I'm Commissioner Jose Gelatz.
We're going to go around the horn here. Yes, sorry.
Liz Welch.
Rich Simmons, architect.
Eric Schiller.
Good morning, Leaving Wood.
And with us today, we have Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, sorry. We have Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. For the reading of the minutes of January 26, 2021, we need a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Now, when we say yes or no, raise your hand. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No hands up. Minutes are accepted. Announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, architect, review and historic preservation manager. Just one item to address today. This is for the appointment of the Barrio Latino Commission representative to the Ybor City Development Corporation. That is a 2-year appointment, which that individual represents the perspectives of the Barrio Latino Commission on the YCDC board. Currently, Mr. Thompson had been serving in that role. Ms. Welch has volunteered to serve in that role. Okay. Hopefully that got picked up. As I said, Ms. Welch has volunteered to serve in that capacity. If that's favorable to the board, we would need a motion for the appointment.
So moved.
A second?
And just confirming that Ms. Welch is able to serve in that capacity for 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And
All
that
in
would just
favor?
need a motion.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations. Appreciate you stepping up for that. With that, we'll move on to our conflict of interest and ex parte communication. Our legal counsel will lead that.
Good morning, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda today? Seeing none for the record. Additionally, will the Commissioners please state on the record whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda? Seeing none for the record. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to continuations, we have one, and that is BLC 21-34 for the address of 2910 North 10th Street. This continuation was a request from the agent to continue to the March 23rd, 2021 public hearing at 9 a.m., and we need a motion for that, please.
So moved.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue BLC 2031 to the next hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And at this time, we're going to do the swearing. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff. Ms. Juzak will swear us in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are providing is this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Calling the first case forward, which is BLC 21-46. This is for the address of 906 East 19th Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant lot with a zoning classification of YC8. And for any this morning, this is for new construction for a single-family residence. If I could get the, thank you. I'm going to go through a quick photo presentation, starting with the Sanborn map. Property in question is here in the shaded green area. Obviously, this is from 1929. There was a single-family structure that's there. You see the setback of the structure, how it lines up with the abutting properties to the east. There's a different orientation as the project to the west fronts Nebraska Avenue, and then this is 19th Avenue as well. There is an alley. There's a 20-foot alley that runs to the rear of the property, which is here, and it dead ends as it engages to the properties on Nebraska. This is our vicinity map. Property in question is in the northwest corner, once again almost to Nebraska and on 19th Avenue. This is an aerial shot. Once again, it's a vacant parcel. There are some trees on the site. This tree here is a oak that has been reviewed by Natural Resources, and the plan presented does not negatively affect this tree. Once again, this is the alley. That is an open alley that runs to the north of the property and terminates right before it gets to the Nebraska. 19th Avenue and Nebraska again. This is looking from the primary street, 19th Avenue, looking back into the property. You have a period structure to the east. This is looking at the property to the west that's used for overflow parking for the church that's on Nebraska. This is a contributing structure. This is the structure to the east. As a reference, you can see elevation from grade and setback from the property line that will be talked about this morning. This shows the traditional brick streets with the granite curbing as you look towards Nebraska, which is to the west. This is looking from the alley back into the subject site. This is the tree that I spoke about that Natural Resources reviewed. These over here are camphor trees, and they could be removed if needed, but the siting of the request this morning does not call for that. This is the subject site, which is here, looking at the alley as it goes to the east, which shows that the openness and how it terminates as you approach Nebraska. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, Mr. Spooner will address the board.
Good morning. I'm Ron Spoor. I'm the COO with Habitat for Humanity of Hillsborough County. We're proposing to build a single-family home on the site. We will sell the home to an eligible applicant. First, I'd like to say Mr. Vila has been extremely helpful, and he's a treasure for the city. We really thank him for the information that he's provided to us. So if I miss anything, it won't be Mr. Vila's fault. It will be mine. I guess I actually took some pictures, but Mr. Vila presented the pictures. I would have, in the pictures that I'd shown, just kind of mentioned the alley is, overgrown, not particularly desirable for vehicular traffic. So we designed, I would have loved to only have rear-loaded access to the house, but we do have a driveway, which I'll show on the site plan that I'd like to present. Should I? So the block face average setback is 13 foot 2 inches, so we've set the house 13 foot 2 inches back from the property line. The 25 inch oak that Mr. Vila references, actually it's on the neighboring parcel to the east, not on our subject parcel, but you can see that we designed the house to avoid that root system, just barely avoid that root system. I mentioned I'd like to have just vehicular access from the back, so we do have a driveway back there, but I'm really not certain whether the homeowner is going to want to use the alley. It's overgrown, it's not lit as far as I could tell, and it's actually fairly uncomfortable to drive that alley. And of course, it dead ends right there. So I don't know that the homeowner will use that back rear-loaded driveway, but we'll put it there in the event that they would like to. We did put a brick paver ribbon driveway in the front. That's one space, and it's set back so that the vehicle can be behind the porch. Of course, we have a narrow setback on the other side because we pushed the house as far as we could to protect that root system. I guess that's all. I don't have any other items to mention on the site plan. Next, I'd like to present some information before I put the architectural plans up. Just some notes about the materials, which will make more sense when I put the architectural plans up in a minute. 25-year fiberglass roof shingles, beadboard wood paint grade soffit attached to the underside of the roof decking, 2x6 pressure treated exposed rafters. The paint colors to follow the Ybor City color palette. Exterior wall hardy siding, smooth finish. Foundation with a smooth finish, painted. All doors wood grade. I'll show some samples of those. Lighting and hardware, exterior grade black. And the trim will be hardy board trim. All the stairs are concrete. Gel-Gwin wood clad window. A craftsman style wood door to the front. There's 3 other doors. There's double doors in the back and a door on the side, which would also be craftsman without the light. Along the western side, we would like to put a stockade fence. And to the front, we'd like to put a wood white picket fence. There's a lot of traffic in this area. This is very close to Nebraska. If you go to the lot on a typical day, there's quite a lot of people in the area, and so we'd like to give the homeowner some privacy. By the way, the lot's been vacant since I guess 1993. We did acquire the lot from the city. So this is a craftsman style home. Of course, it's got gable roofs, a large front porch, brick columns. I could show a little detail on the column. Hardy plank, hardy board wood siding, exposed rafter tails. We're going to actually try Iconine, a fully vented, Iconine attic, unvented attic in this case. We typically use, we typically always do vented attics, but in this case, we actually wanted to try an Iconine attic for some time. So this will give us a great opportunity because we're not going to have the ventilation that we typically would without the, without vented soffits, and probably, make the house look a little more architecturally appropriate without ridge vent as well. So we're gonna try the Iconine on this one. That'll be a nice benefit for the homeowner. We build Energy Star houses. We're very, very committed to energy efficiency. We typically hit right around a 54 on the Hurst scale. This will be a nice opportunity to see what kind of benefit we could even get from Iconine. So that's what we'll plan to do on the attic. We do have a decorative front vent on this house. The windows are all 1/1 wood windows. And I mentioned the door. It's a craftsman style. Railing, I'll show you some detail in a minute on the railing. Not much to say about the floor plan. Just wanted to briefly show you that. This was actually adapted from a house that we built in over by the Garcia Cigar Factory. We're currently building. It's not a historic district, but we have a couple homes going over near the Garcia Cigar Factory, and we've tried to be very architecturally compatible, although they are not reviewed by the historic board. So this plan is actually adapted from one we're doing right across from the Garcia Cigar Factory. That one did actually have it's got double frontage, and it had a rear-loaded garage. In this case, we would have liked to do the garage, but that would not be appropriate in this district. So that's exterior storage space, and just so you know, it can't become a garage. It's actually poured. The concrete in that storage space is not at grade. It's actually poured up to the level of the house. So there's not going to be an opportunity to turn that into a garage. It may be likely that at some point the homeowner turns it into living space if they permit that and do that. But for now, it's unconditioned storage space. That says 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. The house is about, give or take, 1,300 square foot conditioned. An example of the trim around the windows. Example of the soffit and the beadboard, exposed 2x6 rafters. And then that is a gutter. We'd like to do gutters on this and drain the property to the front, to 19th Avenue. That's a circular gutter. Actually took these pictures from a new house in the district that, as far as I could tell, was done very well on 10th Street. So. It shows a beadboarded soffit on the porch ceiling. Wall section, it is prefabricated trusses, exposed rafter tails, 2x6, roof shingles. This is a block wall, but we will it'd be hardy board siding, but it is block. The colors, we'll choose from these colors that Mr. Vila provided to us. We'll allow the homeowner. We'll work with the homeowner to choose appropriate, suitable colors from this color chart. Picture of railing is shown on the plans. Detail of that railing. This is wood railing. Please pay no attention to any other detail except the brick column and hardy board used for trim above the brick. An example of the pavers that we would use for the ribbon driveway. And the reason for the pavers, of course, is to prevent damage to the root system of the 25-inch oak tree. That concludes the information that I have.
Thank you.
Is there questions for me?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vilo, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the presentation that was presented this morning. On page 3 of our staff report, we reviewed the plans that were submitted to our office on February 5th, 2021, and there was about 10 conditions that were associated with the drawings that we reviewed. And speaking with their team that presented this morning, they've addressed all the items of concern at that time, and this meets the Ybor City design guidelines. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We have the opportunity for public comment. If somebody's here to speak for or against the project, now's your time. Seeing nobody coming up to the dais, we can move to commissioners asking questions regarding the project, and we'll start with Levy.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Did you have any elevations to show, or maybe from the adapted floor plan from the previous project? Were there any pictures of the previous project, just for us to get an idea of what the project looks like from the exterior?
I do not have anything in addition to just the elevation drawing on these plans.
Okay.
Yeah, the one, you were talking about the cigar house, the one next to the Garcia factory that we're building now?
Right. Where is it you adapted
Yeah.
the plans from?
That one, and that one, it's a little more traditional. It has vented soffit. It's not done to these standards. We think it's a benefit in that area. It's not a historic district, but it's a we think it contributes well to the neighborhood, but it certainly doesn't meet the design guidelines proposed here. So if I showed that picture, it actually
Okay.
you probably wouldn't like it as much because it's got typical vented soffit, et cetera,
Sure.
et cetera.
Good to know. And then where was the condensing unit, the concrete pad for the condensing unit located?
Yeah, we were actually going to put that on the west side, but I think we're going to have to put that on the in the back on the north side.
Okay.
Because it's going to be so tight on that west side.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to have to shift that and put that in the back. Yeah.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Could you please run through the required wall section?
So prefabricated roof truss. It's a 412 pitch. Roofing materials 25-year fiberglass dimensional shingle, or AKA architectural shingle. Peel and stick underlayment. It is OSB sheathing, which is of course not seen in any capacity. 2x6 exposed rafter tails. B-board, as shown on that one picture that I actually took of a house on 10th Street that I think had done it quite well, brand new house on 10th Street that I think had done quite well. B-board on the underside of the roof deck, so that visible is that painted B-board. It's a 8-inch CMU block wall. The aluminum drip edge. We do plan to put a gutter so that we can successfully drain the house and then use underground piping actually to get that water out to bubblers by 19th Avenue. Block wall with, we plan to use lathing strips and Tyvek and then hardy board siding with hardy board trim around the windows, wood-clad windows.
Do you have one that shows where the windows are inset?
I'm sorry, I do not. I have a picture, the picture that I showed of, I guess, this is a house on 10th Street, which I think is built in accordance with the intent. This will be our intention. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ron Vila with Historic Preservation. He did provide us a packet showing a wall section in different intervals, but it is included in our file.
Gotcha.
Which drawing is it on the one you're looking at? That shows the closed vent, doesn't it? Or not exposed rafters?
I think you have to combine them.
You know, I can't read it. It is possible that that he used a cutout section from a, cut and paste. It will certainly not be vents, will certainly not be aluminum vents off it. It'll be the exposed rafters with the beadboard underneath. Unvented attic with isoning.
I'm done.
Thank you. Good morning. You mentioned during your presentation that you're providing gutters there. So that's going to be on both the lower slopes and then it's going to drain to the front. What's the profile of the gutter that you're proposing to use?
It's a semicircle. I guess it's 180 degree.
So a half round?
Yes.
Okay, so that's historically sensitive. Okay. I'd like to jump to the site plan if you don't mind. Can you run through your setbacks on the site? I couldn't really make out the dimensions there. I just want to, I know you said the west side is really tight.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we pushed it as far west as we could to get away from the 25-inch oak. I'm looking, I think it says it's just a touch more than 5 feet. I see a 5.13 there on the west side. The east side, 18.37, 18.25. The front, again, is based on that block face average. I did measure all the homes on that block and came up with 13 foot 2 inches to the property line on the front. And then I guess that leaves just a little less than 30 feet in the back.
Okay. And you had said previously, I think the steps on the east side go up to that side door, but in your AC, one of the plans showed your AC unit out there, but you think you're going to put that in the back?
Yeah, I think it's going to be too tight. We want to put that stockade fence along the west side. If we set that condensing unit on that west side, I think it's just going to be too tight. So I think we'll ask our
On the
architect
west side? I thought it was going to go on the east side.
And I guess I should mention one other thing. We flipped the house from what we originally planned.
Right.
Part of the reason we weren't planning on doing this ribbon the driveway, but we really don't think the homeowner is going to just gravitate towards this back alley.
I understand.
Yeah. So we actually have to we put the ribbon driveway in and then realized we really need to flip the house so that the stairs are accessible. As opposed to being on the other side, the stairs are going to be on the other side, which if you've got a ribbon driveway leading up to, you have the opportunity to have your stairs right there. So we're actually mirroring the house. So I propose to put the condensing unit in the back of the house.
Okay. So let's talk about your finished floor elevation there is 45.89. How does that work with, you talked about block averaging for setbacks. Has staff reviewed, or you work with staff to determine what that setback would be? You average that block with the other contributing structures on that street. Same thing for how high that is off of the street. Is that working off of a block average, or how did you come to that elevation?
It's a great point. No, we didn't. We typically set them 18 inches above the crown of the road. So
So you meet City of Tampa minimum standards.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll come back to, I'll probably ask staff if they have any additional comment on that. Okay, so 13.2 is the block average from that street?
Yes.
And there's no documentation to kind of show that?
I took measurements of all the houses. I do have that. I typically
No, in front
produce
of us?
I'm sorry, in front of
us,
That's correct.
yeah.
There's not. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There's not.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for your investment in the historic neighborhood. It's really important to get more affordable housing. You mentioned that you flipped the plan, and that's why there's a inconsistency with the floor plan you showed us. But when I'm looking at the current site plan, you didn't flip it when you didn't flip the garage or the conditioned space. If you totally flip the plan, now the concrete drive is against the west property line. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree it would be. Yeah, the driveway doesn't have to, it could be on either side, really, because it's not a garage, so the driveway could be anywhere.
So it's not necessarily has to be aligned with the doors that you've provided for the space.
There's really no reason that, the only reason if you're storing bikes in that room,
Okay.
then you probably want to wheel them down onto concrete, but I don't think that's a critical feature.
Okay, and I just want clarification because the driveway really isn't as effective against the west, given that the alley's a dead end. It would be really difficult to get a...
Yeah, it's even worse to back up. You're correct about
So
that.
you're saying, so this concrete stoops on your site plan then move. It just seems like you're...
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think that's
Yeah.
that's an excellent point, is that it'd be better to keep the driveway on the east side so that they could back up if they actually would use that.
Well, I'm not sure if it's better because visually it would look perhaps more appropriate if the drive even ended in the opening that you've provided on the.
Okay.
So my concern though is the elevations, because if you flipped it, then the elevations as you've presented them to us, I guess are reversed. It just seems like we're being asked to approve this with very inconsistent drawings.
Yeah, I think the front of the house,
Yeah,
It's
our purview is all four sides. So, I mean, I think we can all kind of understand what you're doing, and for the most part, it does meet the guidelines, so I appreciate that. And then the only other point I wanted to make is that you brought up when you showed us your intent for the wall sections, but I just want to be clear that none of your drawings show that when you have concrete block construction and you're adding hardy board, that adds an additional dimension, additional depth to your wall section, which is, I think, where the question about how the windows, where the windows are recessed. But more importantly, from my point of view, is I want to be clear that the 2-foot overhang is taken from the dimension of the exterior of the hardy board, so that we don't minimize the effect of the overhang in terms of the historical context. So I really think your drawings and our motion needs to reflect all that.
is that a note we can add is that a note maybe we could add?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's it. No other questions?
Yeah, that could come in the form of a condition that you could agree to. That would be on the record for staff to respond to in the future. That's a hypothetical. You picked up my comment that I was going to say on the steps and drive. So for the record, the steps would flip and the drive would stay?
Steps on the east side of the house.
Yes.
Steps on the east side.
Okay. In the site plan here, we've got the porch, and we've talked about the height of it, which is fine, in terms of the conversation that we need to have, to make sure that we're averaging out with the rest of the neighborhood. You have the step up, the concrete pad and the steps that are there. Is there any covering for any of those, or is that just half covered by the 2-foot overhang?
I'm sorry. The steps. Is there any covering for the steps on the side of the house?
Yes.
I agree. We do not plan for a separate covering for those steps.
Okay. And similarly, on the back side of the house, the north elevation, where we have the unconditioned space, we've got a double door up off the ground with these steps and no additional covering over them?
Yes.
Okay. Can you put the elevations up again? Let's start on the front elevation. So what we're seeing here is essentially this would be flipped. This image would be
Yes.
mirrored?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then we have and then here, in your depiction, I think your stairs actually on the side porch are shown as being accessed from the south, is that correct? So we would see the stairs there as well? Right now you're seeing the backside of the landing in this elevation?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so that would flip as well. Okay. I think that here we've got, what do we have? A gable end here and a little bit of a 2-foot overhang there for the shingle roof. Is that what's happening?
That's
there?
what the architect's showing here, yes.
Okay.
We actually would prefer to have done just we prefer not to have that pent roof there, but my architect put it on there. And he's running like 4 weeks on the turnaround right now, so that's how it's showing, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so as a component, that seems kind of awkward, that little projection there with the rafters coming off.
I'd be happy not to do it. I didn't ask him to put it on there.
Can you, let's look at the backside, see how the backside compares.
He's got it on the backside too. I'd be happy not to do it back there. We'd rather do a band board there. So it would look really similar to that, but
Right, we just have a gable end.
Yeah,
And
just
then
with-
here you would flip that rear elevation would be flipped. Essentially, the concrete steps would move over to the other side, and you wouldn't see the steps in this elevation. You'd see the backside of the landing.
that is correct.
Okay. I think that in this elevation as well, although it's not one that is on the street, you have the opportunity to introduce one of the vents. I know it's not a vented attic, but I think that you've got too many up front and none in the back. Where if it were a vented attic, you would be trying to get all the cross ventilation through the space there. So I think you can consider adding that. Will you put the detail up of the guardrail? I noticed you had crossed out some of the dimensions that you had there, or the pickets. You had a specific detail that was kind of.
This one?
Yeah, so it was the 2x2 that caught my eye. So that would be just the nominal an inch and a half by inch and a half that you're looking for there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think that you've got a lot of the pieces and parts of what you're looking for, but as has been mentioned, it's not all a one cohesive picture that we're looking at so far. So we're trying to understand it and be able to perhaps appropriately condition what is going forward so that we can have a good discussion and give staff what they need. I think that from my point of view, the on the north and the south, that little 2-foot band there with the extra gable or the rafter tails is just decorative. I mean, that's not how the trusses work. That's not how it goes. I think you can solve that with some banding.
Beautiful.
And I think that it's kind of ahistoric in trying to incorporate those pieces. So I would prefer to see it kind of a little bit more of a streamlined approach to the elevation, a little bit more simple, a little bit fewer grills on the front, because they seem to, the venting on the top in the front seems to take up a lot of the gable end, where I think that could be just a single piece with one on the back. Talked about that. Okay. I appreciate your help in walking us through that. You have the opportunity to rebut any of the comments that you've heard, or provide additional insight before we close the public hearing and discuss the case as commissioners. But
No rebuttals. I actually appreciate your critique. You made some great suggestions. You know, our goal is to make it the best it can be. We actually, at the end of this, we want the Barrio Commission to say, hey, we'd like for Habitat to build another house in our area because they follow our guidelines. They do a nice product. So that's certainly our objective. So I appreciate all your comments.
Thank you. So we'll close the public hearing and discuss the case.
No, I believe with some conditions, with our comments that we've kind of discussed with the applicant, as we questioned him, we should have a successful project.
I have no further comments, thank you.
Okay.
I have no further comments.
I certainly appreciate the project in the neighborhood, and I understand, you guys are a nonprofit, and, wherever you can save money is really important, but there are a lot of inconsistencies in the drawings that have been presented. My tendency would be to make a motion to continue with suggestions, or if we feel comfortable enough that they understand the discussion that's occurred, doing a motion to approve with conditions and hope that staff will be able to really follow through on them.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think that we've got we need to be able to craft something that would allow staff to be able to continue on with it without us seeing it again, or come back to it. I mean, in my opinion, the plan is what it is. I think that a number of the inconsistencies are just mirroring things. Massing and scale, I think, is appropriate. I would like to see those, the north and the south little rafter tails taken off and go to a more, historic reference with a band. I'd even like to see at the entries, at the side entries and the back piece, the opportunity to work with staff on something that was historically sensitive in terms of what would be a secondary covering for those entries, especially on the backside, so that you had a little bit of protection for those openings, and they just aren't out there, especially on that north end, getting rain just driven into it.
Did I understand correctly, this is the first project in the historic district for Habitat?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully if it moves forward, then the organization would be able to develop a packet of details that they could use as a pattern book as they consider more projects in the neighborhood, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, so any other discussion, or are we somebody want to try a motion?
Well, I need to agree with you, because if he takes the covering off the north facade, those double doors are guaranteed to leak. So I don't want to do that to them and send them away and have them build it, and then they're in trouble.
I think this is a classic example of really taking plans from another project and kind of working them to fit the district, but they're not thought out well. They're not, totally brought to the level of detail that we need to see. I agree with John over, those overhangs, the rafter tails on the north and south sides aren't needed. They're not consistent with the historic district. There's other solutions that you can use over the double doors and the side door to protect those openings. There's a lot of standard craftsman style historic details of a separate structure or extending the roof structure there to cover those doors. I know you guys do great work, and I know it's kind of historic in nature of the building is that it wasn't developed far enough along, and it's got too many other details that aren't fully resolved yet. So yeah.
I'm agreeing with what the conversation is that's going on.
Thank you. Well, we need to go one way or the other. We need a motion that is going to, we have two options. It seems like we have one where we ask to come back and see it, or see it again, or we condition it in such a way that allows staff to, address those, the points about the coverings. I think that the flipping of it is just a function of, that's how it's gonna be. And so it's the question of how much more detailing do we wanna see. Agreed, it's not a complete package in terms of what we would wanna see going forward, and we've worked with other builders in the district to keep refining their approach, not only to what's built, but what's presented, so that we can, work with you to keep moving forward. So it's...
If I could ask the applicant, I'm leaning towards giving you a continuation with some clear guidelines is what we'd like to see, and then you could develop the drawings that hopefully you can use for a future project in the neighborhood. Would that additional month where you have to reappear for us throw the project off?
We're closed.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Kamaria
We can open
Pettis-Knuckle
it back
from the
up.
city attorney's office.
Yeah.
So I hear the discussion from the commissioners, and so first, in regards to your suggestion about a continuance, it's
Yeah.
up to the applicant on whether or not they want to consider a continuance. Otherwise, you have to proceed forward with the vote.
Okay.
And alternatively, you stated that you have several conditions that you would like the applicant to consider in order to give guidance to staff and to address your concerns. If you're going to provide conditions, it's important to be specific enough so that staff will in turn know the direction that you as a commission would like this case to proceed with. So again, any consideration for a continuance has to be up to the applicant, and if you are making conditions, if that is what you would like to do, it's important to be specific enough so that not only the applicant understands what the conditions are, but that staff also knows what the conditions are.
Thank you. So, do you want me to reopen so we can get that question answered?
If it's possible, sure.
Okay. So we need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I'll move to reopen the public hearing.
Need a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we're open again, so we can ask you, you hear the conversation that's going on. We're trying to figure out which is the best way to move it forward. One would be to say, you've heard what we've had to say today. Please, revise the plans, come back to us with, with the comments that you've heard here addressed in a future hearing. We understand that causes, work on your end. We want to see if that's something that you would entertain, or do you want the up and down, or kind of the other motion that we can make, which is to say we can condition it and send it to staff, or that could fail as well, and you have the ability to have the commission create a motion that goes forward today or not. So you have the choice to have the continuation, or you can require us to vote today on your application.
Does the continuation, is that another public hearing that gets posted, and there's fees for that?
Yes. I'm sorry, did you say fees?
Fees, yeah.
Are you asking, sir, about renoticing? It's just a continuation.
Okay, so there's no renoticing or no fees for that?
Right.
Okay.
No, I think that the only, in terms of what you might have to endure, which would be, revising plans per the comments that you hear today, making, coordinating with your design professional and being able to come back and present. That potentially creates a burden to a user.
I was going to comment. I mean, we may not even need to go to a continuance. I mean, what happens if we do a preliminary approval with certain conditions and make him, so he can keep moving forward,
Right.
make those conditions apparent, update the drawings, come back to us, and it's not that
Or fine.
complicated of a project, which I know preliminary approvals, we tend to do that a little bit more, but I think, I'm not sure how the rest of the commissioners feel, but, I think the gist and the nature is in good shape there. I just, fine tune a few of the details too, so that may be an option.
Yeah. Did you understand that option as well? A preliminary approval where other larger developers need to have some kind of certitude that they're going to be approved before they move forward. A preliminary allows them to take, for example, a larger project and understand that they do have a preliminary and they just have to iron out some details. Yours is a smaller project, but the conversation that you're hearing is there's some details that we want to get ironed out. And the question is, does the commission want to see them again, or are we comfortable with conditioning it so that staff can deal with it and handle those as, kind of outside of this forum?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, the work for me is the same. I'd be happy to come back here on March 23rd, and literally my office is a block away. I'd be happy to come back here and show the revised plans. We'd have to revise them anyway, so I really don't think it's additional work. If you want me to come back on March 23rd, I'd be very happy to. It'll give us a month to revise them, and I know what you want, so I think you'll have it.
Okay.
And is Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office, sir, is that what your desire is to ask for a continuance?
Yeah, I think so. I think out of respect for the committee, I think you've made a lot of good points, and I do think that the plans, were a little lacking in the fact that I'm saying, yeah, I got to flip them. So I think it'd be very respectful for us to make the revisions that you suggested for us to come back here March 23rd on a continuation, and I think you'll be pleased at that time.
Okay. Either that or preliminary.
Preliminary with conditions.
Yeah. I think that's the spirit of what we're after. But I will leave it to, okay. So we're good. So we'll close the public hearing again.
Okay.
Thank you. And any further discussion amongst the commissioners, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I think the applicant wanted a continuance, so, we've stated I started making a list of items to work out with staff so we could enter that into the record, but they opted for a continuance, so.
I think, well, to be fair, I think that's important, but I think a preliminary would give the applicant a little bit more certitude so that if the composition of next time comes around, that we don't have to, wonder whether or not this was appropriate for massing and scale and character. We just want to see some additional details. I think that the preliminary with conditions that we want to see ironed out is more of kind of where we're headed, and in reaching out to you to say we want to help this process go forward for you on this project as well as future projects. I think that speaks to kind of where we're at as a commission, rather than just come back and see us.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Sir, and I want to make sure this is clarified for the record. You've heard the discussion. Can you please clarify on the record if you're asking for continuance, or if you're understanding what the commission is saying about a preliminary approval with conditions? The applicant has asked for a continuance, and I want to make sure, for due process reasons, you clarify what your desire is regarding the application.
With the preliminary, would I still come back on March 23rd?
You would still have to come back.
I like the suggestion, the preliminary approval, and then I'll come back on the 23rd to show the clarified details.
Okay.
Sounds very reasonable.
Okay, and thank you. And you're not asking for a continuance.
I like the suggestion of the preliminary approval with me coming back on March 23rd to clarify show the clarified details. Okay, very good.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager. So March 23rd at 9 a.m. would be the date of the next public hearing. I just want to remind the commissioners that when you do preliminary approval and that's issued, that you should be very specific in what items you want the applicant to bring back, because the project, if those items are not referenced in your motion, then they're presumed to be approved. So anything that you mention in your motion is what the staff will be instructing the applicant to return with on March 23rd.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. Okay. Move to grant a preliminary approval for the drawings and documents as presented at this public hearing on BLC 21-46 for the property located at 906 East 19th Avenue with the following conditions. That the applicant remove the rafter details on the gable ends, the north and south side. That the wall section details the window setback and also the minimum rafter spacing of 2 foot from the finished siding to the ends of the rafter tails. That the floor plan and site plan are coordinated as far as mirroring if we're going to switch back and forth. That we show some documentation on the block averaging on the setbacks of that building, specifically where that dimension is taken from. It could be, taken from the stairs, or it could be taken from the porch, but it should be the porch. I'd like some additional documentation on the finished floor height of what we're seeing on that street. Clarification on the gutters, that they will be half rounds. Location, final location of the AC unit. And regarding the site plan, that concrete strip that leads to the double doors, that's coordinated on the site plan with the floor plan. And also I'd suggest showing some kind of roof covering or awning over the single door and the double doors on the rear, just for weather protection. Any other?
We have a motion with
Well,
conditions.
any other items? I'll close my motion.
I think just to update the site plan, you mentioned specific things, but it's just an overall updated site plan.
Commissioners, if I might add a bedded wall section, I believe that was part of your conversation as
Yeah,
well.
the wall section showing the rafter tails and the window recess and the trim detail. would be
And the
great.
hardy board, because the current one didn't show hardy board.
Correct. Yeah, with the hardy board, with the actual finished material. And then that also stipulates that it would be 2 feet from the hardy board to the rafter tail.
And did we want to talk about the gable vents and one in the back as well, and then kind of just tidy up the front so that's not as.
And if you, if you want to add a gable vent to the backside, those are both going to be gable ends, the north and south side. So if you want to dress that up, and how you're going to address that, yeah.
So this is gonna have a stem wall. If the house is gonna have a stem wall, and I haven't been able to tell from what I saw here, but I'm supposing it is, oftentimes, we've required the applicants to express what the finish is going to be, as far as faux brick or whatever.
Piers.
We need to take a look at the piers, and the detail of those.
Yeah, and clarification of the stem wall conditions of how far the siding goes down. So a complete wall section from top to bottom, detailing the V-board on the exposed rafter tails, all the way take that down to the ground, show your slab on grade. So it just needs to be more specific to this project. Okay. To the March 23rd public hearing at 9 a.m.
We have a motion with conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have 2 seconds. We have a preliminary motion with conditions. Does the applicant understand the motion and the conditions attached therein?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So, all in favor of this motion and its conditions?
Aye.
Any opposed? See you next time.
Thank you for your input. I really sincerely appreciate it. We'll see you in a month.
And thank you.
Seeing no new business, we are adjourned.